For those of you who have been a part of the Fnaf Freddy's franchise, let alone have played the game, I'm sure that you've all stumbled upon a game known as Fnaf Freddy's AR Special Delivery. It was arguably the most forgotten game out of all the official FNAF games released as of this current time. A game which held so much potential, a game which had unique features that the public eye was not familiar with, a game which had sadly fallen into the drain pipe, ultimately hitting rock bottom. This video will take you on a journey through a timeline of the game, starting from its fresh start, the multiple events that the game held, all the way through its controversies and eventually its downfall. This is the Fnaf Ar Special Delivery documentary. Fnaf Freddy's AR Special Delivery happened to be an augmented reality game where the player would face off against animatronics in real time. The developers of this game were a company called Illumix, which also had help from Scott Colvin himself. The game itself was set to release on mobile, meaning that anybody with an iPhone would be able to play. In August 2018, it would be announced that the game was in progress of being made. By the end of 2019, it was ready. There was a planned date set to release the game in October 2019, but due to events, the game had to be delayed till November. During the lead-ups to its release, there will be many teasers which will be posted on Illumix channel page. One of the teasers even happened to feature the YouTuber known as Markiplier himself.
That's right, with the Fazbear Fun Time service, you'll never be alone again. It's guaranteed! With our exclusive animatronics, you'll always have someone watching your back.
It was a really cool moment for the community. On November 22, 2019, the early access was released for everyone, and eventually the game made its official release on November 25th, 2019. Many people started playing the game when it came out, and a lot of videos were being uploaded, most noticeably from Markiplier, Dalko, Fusion, the list goes on. With these videos on the game being uploaded to YouTube, it brought a lot of eyes to the game, and soon enough, it had made its grand debut. The game had a lot of features which are very new to people, most notably the fact that you yourself will be finding animatronics in real time. It also had many things to do, such as collecting plush shoots and CPUs, which you will gain from finding animatronics. There are also some interesting lures in the message tab for the game which kept people hooked. With all the content being released into the game, and with the player base invested, Illumix has gone ahead and made their next move into the game. When you play games on your own time, you notice that developers tend to update games for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons is to keep the player base at bay. It was no different for Fnaf Freddy's AR, and on November 29th, 2019, Illumix introduced the events which would be held in the game. The first ever event would be known as the Get Your Streak On Challenge. This streak would encourage players to get the highest streak they could get without dying for one day, and at the end, the player would get a reward for it. The higher the streak number the player got, the better the reward was. The rewards were no other than the in-game currency known as fast coins, and if you played the game, you would know how important those were. For examples of the rewards were if the player was able to get a new streak of 7 or higher, they would receive 75 fast coins. If the player manages to get a new current streak of 10 or higher, they would be rewarded with 150 fast coins. Players were also rewarded with how many participants logged on during the day. Now there were different goals and rewards which the game had to offer, but at the end of the day, 250,000 people had logged on. Therefore, everyone would receive 50 fast coins each. The reward itself didn't seem like much, but for there to be 250,000 people logged on in one day with the game just being released was astonishing to say the least. In December 2019, Illumix would release the Winter 2019 event, which would consist of 2 new characters being added to the game. The 2 new characters added were no other than Toy Chica and Freddy Frostbear. Both of these characters were important in many factors, but one of the main ones being the fact that it kept the CPUs fresh. These animatronics were different from the ones on release, and it wasn't a rinse and repeat. Freddy Frostbear was special, however, because this was the first and last animatronic to be released into the game made from Illumix themselves. It was their own idea, and the character was super cool. Not only did the game release these 2 characters, but the UI of the game now was decorated with the Christmas season. The map had snow falling down, the shop was decorated with Christmas lights. It was so cool. I get chills just thinking of the memories. Not only that, but the event was the first one to introduce the gift system. Every 4 hours, a gift was able to be received by the players themselves. And as a person who played the game on a daily basis back then, I could say that the gift system was a must. Every 4 hours I would set a timer on my phone just to collect the gifts, even at 2 AM. It was exhausting, but I woke up just for that. These gifts would consist of lures for the animatronics, bats, coins, etc. This event was hyped, but just as it arrived, it would leave, but not without a bang. On January 24th, 2020, just before the event came to the end, Toy Bonnie would be released to the game. However, he would leave not long after, and on January 29th, 2020, he and the event would be gone. Not a bad start to the game, I would say, but this was just the beginning. On February 1st, 2020, the YouTuber known as Dawko would host a charity stream on his channel. During the time, he would play a lot of games, but one event that took place on the stream was an interview with the CEO of Illumix themselves, Karine Sinha. And if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. To explain the interview, it was almost like a Q&A, where Dawko would ask the CEO questions, most notably about Fnaf Ar. During the interview, there were many teased things such as Plush Shop being released in the future, the Glam Rock animatronics being worked on, Lefty being ready to go, and as well as an event known as the Valentine 2020 event, or at least it was hinted.
He will be coming, guys. He will be coming. I can't tell you when, but the roster of animatronics coming up, I think it's going to be so exciting. We're doing some really exciting kind of sets of animatronics in the future, and I think that the fans will be really happy. And trust me, when Plush Trap comes, he'll be totally worth the wait. So
nice. Yeah, because I have noticed you've done them in sets, because you've done them like in toy animatronics. So you've got Toy Chica was first, and Toy Bonnie. It looks like Toy Freddy's coming because of the tease. You don't have to confirm it, but you know the picture that you showed in the office looked like Toy Freddy. And
before the event had begun, Illumix would post some teasers to their page, showing all these animatronics in their Valentine Day cards, but one of them stood out the most. Soon enough after the interview and the stream took place, the Valentine event will be released in February 2020. This was special because Toy Freddy would be released to the game. Players were able to obtain the plush suit and CPUs, the gift system had returned, and the UI changed as well. The map changed into a Valentine setting, and the shop was decorated with hearts. Overall, there wasn't very much in this event. It would remain until the end of February, but with the next few events coming, it would change the game into a huge ton of events. On March 5th, 2020, Mango was released to Fnaf Ar. He changed the game as the mechanics were way different than the ones that the players had seen before. Looking around your room to try to find the parts, it was ugly. Fun fact, but this is the time where I myself got to Fnaf Ar. What a day. March 13th, 2020, an event will be added to the game known as the St. Patrick's 2020 event. But there is a twist. There wasn't any character added to the game. There actually was a skin added to the game for the character. To sum it up real quick, there's a difference between skins and characters. Skins will only have the plush suits obtainable, while the characters mean that the plush suit and CPUs were attainable. The characters were also more hyped. This skin would be known as Shamrock Freddy and would stand out. This skin was a design made from Illumix, and there are many more cool designs coming from them in the future. As players attempted to get the skin, it was revealed that the difficulty was harder than Freddy himself, so soon after, Illumix would nerf the difficulty. It is important to note that yes, there were also gifts to obtain, and the UI for the game would change a few times for future events. I'll be stating this now so I don't have to repeat myself, and that I can save your sanity from having to hear me say that constantly. Now with that being said, let's dive into these introductions of the skins. On April 3rd, 2020, Illumix surprised the players with a Frostbite return to the game. This allowed players to obtain them if they hadn't done so during Christmas 2019, but on April 8th, 2020, he quickly vanished. On April 10th, 2020, the event known as Easter 2020 was released to the game. This event would consist of 2 skins that the players could obtain. The first was a skin known as Chocolate Bonnie, designed from Illumix. This guy ran the streets for the first week until April 17th, 2020, where the Easter Bonnie skin would pull up and cause havoc to the players. The next event for the players was known as the Arcade Mayhem event. This would remain throughout May 2020 and would consist of 3 skins and 1 character. The VR Toy Freddy skin, which would start the event off, which was released on May 7th. On May 15th, the High Score Toy Chica skin was released. May 22nd introduced us to the System Air Toy Bonnie skin, which was a real pain to deal with at the start since it was hard to tell the eye color, but eventually players figured that out. Lastly, 8-Bit Baby was released on May 28th. Now this did come with a CPU, but it was almost the same as Baby's, which was already in the game. The only difference between the two was the ambience and the character noises, and if you thought that the eye color for System Air Toy Bonnie was difficult, try guessing on 8-Bit Babies. It was impossible back then. We waste no time, as the next event was the Wastelands. Our animatronics had seen to have gotten themselves into some trouble and had turned radioactive. This event introduced us to 2 new skins, both of those being Radioactive Foxy, which was released on June 11th, and Toxic Springtrap, which was released on June 18th. The community went crazy over that guy. Fortunately, Toxic Springtrap skin was very buggy. You would click on the skin, and a second later, the game would crash. It wasn't funny. On June 23rd, 2020, Illumix announced on their Twitter page that they have released the Fnaf Ar merch store for the first time, which was huge news back then. I didn't buy anything personally myself, but I've seen some reviews on them. They also released Chocolate Bonnie during this time again to celebrate his new merchandise line. However, he only stayed for 3 short days. The Summer 2020 event was hosted around the months of June and July, where it introduced us to 2 new skins. The first skin was Firework Freddy, which was added on June 26th, and Liberty Chica, which was added on July 2nd. July 16th, 2020, Illumix would make an announcement that Toy Bonnie was returned to the game for a brief moment. This gave players opportunities to attempt to get his plush to his CPU once again. The event, which was hosted along the months of July and August, was known as the Sizzling Summer event. This event especially had a roster of skins. The first skin being Flamethrower Endo, being added on July 24th. Broiler Baby was added on July 30th, Scorched Chica was added on August 6th, and finally Flaming Springtrap, who was added on August 13th, 2020. Flaming Springtrap to this day happens to be my favorite skin in the game. It would also be noted that on the same day of Scorched Chica's release, Illumix would release their first bug fix update. All of these skins are really cool, but you have to remember, it has been 5 months at this point without a character. If you wanted to count 8-Bit Baby, then 3 months. A lot of players at this point would want a character to be released, and fortunately for them, their answers would be granted. After the release of Flaming Springtrap, Illumix would announce that a character update would be released shortly. They've also mentioned that they would be bringing back a few skins due to the request of the community. During the times between August 13th to the 25th, they would be teasing us about a new character. On August 24th, 2020, 8-Bit Baby and VR Toy Freddy would make a short return to the game, but would leave after 1 day. On August 26th, Illumix would give the players a huge hint on the next character, and then the day after, on August 27th, it would be announced that Ballora would be turning her way to the spotlight. As expected, this stole the show, and many players logged on. This was also the start of a new event known as the Dark Circus event, which would also feature 3 new skins to the game. The first skin being added was Remaster Foxy, who arrived on September 3rd. The second skin to be added was Magician Mango, who arrived on September 10th. On the same day of her release, Illumix would make a Reddit post talking about the feature of Fnaf Ar. They teased new gameplay updates, characters of October, and most importantly, 2 more performers coming out for the Dark Circus event. However, that never was the case. Something was off. On September 17th, the last performer came on stage known as the Clown Springtrap skin. However, the second performer they mentioned was never released. Instead, Illumix introduced us to the first Blast of the Past event, which lasted from September 25th to October 1st. It seemed as if they were adding this to cover something. Some theories suggested that the character was supposed to be released at the end of the Dark Circus event. the main suspect being Fnaf Freddy, but some saying that Fnaf Foxy might have been ready to be released as well. The explanation I could come up with is the fact that they weren't ready to release whoever the last performer was. Sadly, we will never know who it was. Evidence to support the last performer rumors is that on September 22nd, Illumix would make another Reddit post to further update us on the future of the game. In the Reddit post, they state in one sentence that there was going to be one more performer, but wanted to change things up at the last minute. So who do you think the last performer was? Let me know in the comments. At this point, the last performer will be the last of our worries, because Illumix was going to shift gears and focus on this new gameplay update which would change Fnaf Ar forever. Throughout the week of October 1st to October 8th, Illumix would release their second blast from the past, featuring skins from earlier in the year. On October 2nd, Illumix would release the first teaser to the gameplay update, which was Inbound. On October 6, 2020, Illumix would further evaluate the bugs that were in the game. These bugs at the time were huge issues for the players, so it was nice to see that Illumix was tackling these problems for us at the time. During the last few weeks, Illumix was very vocal about a new gameplay update being in store, and on October 8th, 2020, it was finally released to Fnaf Ar. This update alone, however, changed the game forever. The way the map worked originally changed. The heads floating around the map were replaced by question marks, and when you clicked on the question marks, stats would show their difficulty. The last major change was the reward system, meaning that it was no longer a pop-up, but more so a balloon which gave you the rewards one at a time. This was controversial with the community, as they felt like the new reward system would ruin the element of surprise. It also didn't help as the game was quite buggy at the start. Many players were seeing random animatronics on the map without lures, such as Freddy Frostbear and other skins. This wasn't supposed to happen, and it was a crazy morning. Near the end of the day, the majority of the community wasn't too bothered by the new gameplay update. The new change is scary for everyone, and it was at a time where we had to adapt to it. Some people weren't happy about it, but fortunately for them, that would all change on an upcoming event in October. On October 9th, 2020, Illumix would announce that Jaco Chica would have arrived in Fnaf Ar. This was very exciting as we would receive the first character out of many in the event, so much so that everyone tried logging on at the same time to the point where it caused delays in the app, but that was shortly fixed. This update came out during my birthday as well, and this is where I started posting Fnaf Ar content on my own channel, which has now since been archived, so some of the footage in the background will be mine. On October 15th, Jaco Bonnie will be released to the game as well. However, he was buggy on release and many players had trouble when it came time to face him. Some reports had come in and saying how the game would just crash mid-fight. It happened to me as well, and it sucked. Illumix also fixed this quickly as well. On October 22nd, the Cabrina Toy Chica skin will be released to Fnaf Ar. This skin was very cool, and it stands out at the top of my favorite skins for sure. However, there was a lot of backlash from the community, not so much about the skin, but for the fact that it wasn't a character. I'm still uncertain to this day about what really went wrong during this time. There was definitely a miscommunication somewhere. Illumix made a Reddit post addressing the controversy and stated that they never said anything about 4 new characters, but there is one skin for the event. Whatever this decided was, it did not matter because the last character was still the show. On October 28th, Illumix would release a teaser trailer on their channel revealing the next character coming to the game. Soon enough, October 29th came around and it was revealed that the last character would be no other than Plushtrap himself. The news of this spread like wildfire through the community. We didn't have to wait any longer. I remember just coming out of school and seeing this post on Reddit, one of the best days of my life. Due to Plushtrap's merch being dropped at the same time, we ultimately stayed till November 11th. The Halloween event remains as the best event, hands down in Fnaf Ar history. On November 12th, 2020, the Haunted Forest event will be added to the game. The event consisted of 3 skins. Willing Toy Freddy was released the day the event was added, while Boulder Toy Bonnie would arrive on November 19th. To end off the event, Swamp Baby would arrive on November 26th. While the event was ongoing, this was around the time where the game was almost unplayable. Many players were complaining about how they could only play a few matches before their game crashed, the RNG of the plus shoot jars were unattainable, and the workshop in the game itself was laggy. Unfortunately, it seemed like the bugs would remain for a while. On December 2nd, 2020, Illumix would tease the next event, but would eventually have to delay it by a day. The cause of this was due to the bugs, mostly caused by the new event that was to transpire, but possibly due to some of the bugs that were in the game at the time. Needless to say, these 3 weeks were a tough time for the community. It seems as if a charm would once again flourish throughout the game. On December 4th, 2020, Illumix would announce the release of the Winter Wonderland event, which came out with 4 new skins to the game. To start off the event, the Black Eyes Frostbear skin would be released. To go a bit more in depth, it's more like an update, and the day of the release, the app icon would actually be changed to Black Eyes Frostbear himself. On December 10th, Illumix would make an announcement about a community event that was to partake in the game. This event gave a challenge out to the players where everyone had to work together to fill up a meter of the game. If the goal was reached within a week, the players would receive a reward, which would be a character itself.
You guys continue to gather your coins and all of that in the event. You will unlock a brand new character, which will be very exciting. It's me.
This kept many players intrigued, and many of them logged on to get the challenge done. On the same day, the Arctic Ballora skill would make its way to the game. Many players were able to obtain its plush shoot. It had a very cool skin, and the effects on it were out of this world. Illumix spent so much time that you could just tell from its design. The following week would consist of the player base grinding the community quest that Illumix gave out, and on December 17th, it will be revealed that the goal was reached from the community itself, and that the reward will be revealed shortly. It also stated that it will come out with an update, and many players were pleased with the results. On the same day, the Frostbite BB skin would make its way to the game, and as usual, many players went on a quest to obtain its plush suit. However, its RNG was horrible, and it took ages for the majority of the players to obtain the plush suit. A weird bug to say the least, but mistakes do tend to happen. Many players were curious on what the new character was going to be, and soon enough, the questions would be turned to answers. On December 20th, Illumix would make a Reddit post revealing that the character was no other than Golden Freddy himself. It would also be announced that the photo booth would be released to the game, but Golden Freddy's review outshined the photo booth. Due to how soon Golden Freddy was released, there were ultimately very many bugs that occurred during this encounter. Many players would experience bugs such as the game crashing, the character itself getting stuck in a loop, meaning that the fight was endless. Golden Freddy would jump scare the player out of nowhere. Many bugs such as that. It also didn't help that on the release of Golden Freddy, players would be introduced to a black screen bug, where the game just wouldn't load. Illumix would make a statement on their Twitter page saying that they were working on the bug and suggested some techniques that would work in the meantime. On December 24th, the Frost Push-Up skin would make its way to the game, and it would be the last skin of the event. Overall, this event in my opinion was hyped, and it comes right before the October event. The Winter Wonderland stayed until the following month of January, where it would soon come to its end. Little did the players know at the time, this would possibly be the final event which would have such a positive impact, because the following factors, it would sort of become the downfall of the game itself. January 2021 would consist of Blast from the Past. All the skins and characters from past events would make a return. During those times, Illumix will be working on the Heartstopper event, which would eventually be released on February 4th. This event will have 2 new skins added, and those were the Black Heart Bonnie skin and the Heartsick Baby skin. It was also the first time where Illumix would add 2 new skins on the same day. The same day of the release, there were reports of many bugs occurring when the players would log in, but the issues would soon be resolved a day later from Illumix. On February 11th, the Fnaf Ar blackout occurred, where nobody was able to play the game due to connection problems. Illumix would address the community once again, stating that the back-end servers were down and that they had to fix it. Seeing as so, it was fixed not long after because players were able to play the game again in the evening. On February 12th, Illumix announced the first photo booth challenge on their Twitter page. The photo booth was a system in the game where it allowed you to take photos in the game in real time. This also came with frames which you could purchase with fast coins. With the photo booth challenge being announced, this encouraged players to use the photo booth to partake in the event. Once the photos were taken from the players, they were to submit their results to the Twitter or Instagram pages of Illumix. This was a cool system, and at the end, players were rewarded with a whole lot of stuff. But the biggest reward was the 20% discount of the Fnaf Ar merch store. On February 19th, it would be revealed that Toy Freddy would be added to the game permanently. Players no longer had to worry about not being able to catch him in time. The Heartstopper event concluded on March 3rd, but that wasn't the end of the photo booth challenges. On March 5th, 2021, Ancient Equinox event would arrive to the game and consisted of 2 new skins, Serpent Mango and the Cursed Springtrap skin. This event also had 2 skins coming out on the same day. On March 10th, the next photo booth challenge would begin, and it gave many players another chance to get the rewards. It also should be stated that the frames and the photos would change due to the theme of the challenge. It gave unique rules. The results wouldn't be revealed until March 23rd, surprisingly, and on March 30th, the Equinox event would end. It should also be noted that during these times, a situation was revealed to the public eye. For us to touch base with this, we will need to go back in time. On March 8th, 2021, a post would be made on Reddit about a situation that had happened between Michelle Moss and Illumix. The post would explain that Michelle Moss, who was also Ballora's voice actor, had happened to be contacted by Illumix themselves about helping them produce some voice lines in the Fnaf Ar game for Ballora's release. However, this did not happen since Illumix supposedly bailed on her at the last second. The post would have added a screenshot which showed an email responding back to them from Michelle Moss. In the screenshot, it confirmed what the post was saying. However, I would highly suggest to take this with a grain of salt, because this comes with a complete lack of evidence besides the screenshot here. It could be very well true that this happened, and some other series suggested that God Cosmic himself gave Michelle Moss the role of voice acting Roxanne Wolf in Security Breach as an apology of the situation. But at the end of the day, with the lack of context of the situation, we won't know the real issue behind this until further notice. With this on the rise throughout the community, it started to shift the viewpoint on Illumix drastically. Many players gave their thoughts on the situation, some stating how unprofessional it was for Illumix to do that. Illumix never actually came up with an official statement on this, and I don't think they ever will talk about this one. Perhaps it was just a rumor, but it might have been true as well. If anyone has any more evidence, please let me know. On March 23rd, Illumix would release on their Twitter page about a teaser for a future game update. There wasn't much to look at then, but throughout the months of its release, we slowly got more clues. During the month of April 2021, we got 2 new events, which in total consisted of 3 new skins. The Scary Tale event, however, was a bit rocky. The initial release date had to be delayed by 4 days due to a lot of bug issues. It eventually came out on April 19th. Unfortunately, before its release, leaks were spread around the community of the skins, so everyone knew what they were looking at for the event. Though the situation was unfortunate for most, everyone would get a heads up on April 30th, where Illumix will announce that a huge game update was to be released very soon from that day. And eventually on May 18th, 2021, the big gameplay update was released to the game. This update added many things such as level systems for the players and mechanics to the gameplay for the players, which made it more strategic. The animatronics were also changed and their encounters were very different now compared to before. With the new mechanics also came a new system called buffs, which would help out the player during the encounters with the animatronics. And to end it off, there was a new leaderboard system which will allow you to compete more with the community to see who can get the highest score on a vote. It was a nice touch just to allow other players to interact with one another besides the animatronics to each other. Illumix spent a lot of time for this update, and it was clear that they had many ideas with this. But unfortunately, things went wrong and many players were upset. Complaints were sent in saying how the health bar on the animatronics were ridiculous and encounters with them lasted for ages. There were also many glitches to come with it, and it wasn't a good thing to say the least. There were also some posts saying that some bugs in the past had not been fixed yet, most notably the game crashing constantly. What would have been a promising change turned out to be not so great. There were definitely some changes that needed to be made. I had no doubt in my mind that Illumix was wanting to expand on this in the future. However, this did not happen, and instead, we were happening to approach the Dark Ages. The month of May and June 2021 consisted of an event which brought 3 new skins to the game. Illumix had also introduced the photo booth challenge for that event. Another event was to be released on June 17, 2021, but was delayed due to Scott Cawthon's retirement and the drama that was happening in those times. The event known as Screenpunk would be released on June 24th, and it consisted of 3 other skins that would also be added to the game. It also came out with a photo booth challenge, which would conclude on July 14th, and on July 15th, Illumix would address the community about an update that would fix a lot of bugs, and thank goodness it did. The update many players wanted was here, and it fixed so many past bugs that needed to be fixed. Game crashes were no longer a thing, the counters with the animatronics were also fixed. It was a huge deal at the time. On July 26, 2021, Illumix had announced that they had been selected to the Disney Accelerator program. It was a scare for the community, and many feared that Disney would ruin Fnaf Ar, but that wasn't the case at all. Disney Accelerator was a 3-month program, which would help small companies expand quicker than a normal rate. It was a huge boost for Illumix at the time. It also would allow them to focus on many more projects which they would finally do. Although it was good for the company, the community had been left without any events or updates. Little did we know, the Screenpunk event would be the very last event in the game. Throughout the months of August, September, and October, the game had its blast from the past coming in, and there were a few new photo booth challenges, but it also became clear that the game was starting to become stale. What didn't help was the fact that Illumix wasn't communicating on anything for long periods of time, and the community began to become upset as the Dark Ages raged on. On September 16, 2021, Illumix will release a mini September update that will make a Reddit post to address the community. I was unable to find what Illumix had said on this post, but then I found out that they deleted the post. If not deleted, then it got downvoted to the ground. That post became one with the earth. The community was furious with this post, and many stated their frustrations with the community and the game. Some complaints stated that the game had become more pay to win with the 3D icons costing $7 Canadian. Some stated that their concerns with the game made a point that 2020 had 10 characters and 25 new skins, while in 2021 only came with a lackluster of 13 skins. From what I could gather, Illumix seemed to have mentioned something about a DLC taking place at the end of the year, but it would have to be paid for. This is what made the community upset about it, and in all honesty, couldn't blame them. Illumix could have done a better job in a lot of ways, but I feel like if they communicated a lot more during these times they were down, the backlash would not have been this bad. This is why communication is key. Illumix stayed quiet after the September incident. Throughout October, there was one lackluster photo booth challenge. Besides that, nothing had changed. Illumix had refused to communicate with the community, and because of that, the players became more angry as time went on. It wasn't until mid-November when Illumix started giving us new teasers on the DLC coming out to the game, and on November 29th, 2021, Illumix will release a teaser to their YouTube channel. It was a promising comeback for the game, since it looked really cool, and on December 13th, the DLC was launched and was added to Fnaf Ar. Players went in to see what was up only to find out that the DLC had a price of a whopping $16 Canadian. So many players were not happy about this and took their frustrations out on Illumix. The DLC was buggy at the start, but over time, Illumix seemed to have fixed the bugs. The gameplay itself in the DLC was new. You actually had to move around in the game to get to these puzzles. Not only that, but the game had introduced new cutscenes to the game with the characters of the DLC. The characters were the Ringmaster Boxy skin, Ballora, and a new skin for Golden Freddy. After the DLC was released, Illumix posted some behind-the-scenes looks at the designs of the animatronics. It was cool to get a perspective on what was going on behind the scenes. And on December 23rd, 2021, Illumix would announce the release of Fnaf Freddy. After one whole year, players had finally received a character in the game, and it was great to end off the year with a bang. However, this would sadly be the last ever update to be released to Fnaf Ar, and things would take a turn for the worst. On January 18th, 2022, Illumix would announce the final photo booth challenge for Fnaf Ar, and it would be based off of One Time Freddy. This kept the community somewhat engaged, and on January 27th, 2022, Illumix would announce the winners of the challenge. This would also be a very important date, because from then on, this was the last ever tweet on the Fnaf Ar Twitter page. The last update for the Fnaf Ar game was on February 3rd, 2022, where they would add a bug fix to the game. Besides that, it is likely that it was the last update for the game. The game had turned to Blast from the Past, which would now last for eternity. The community was eager to hear what Illumix had in store next, and as always, they had to wait. Days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months, and eventually, there was no word from Illumix themselves. Many started to speculate what happened, such as theories on how Illumix just left the community after gaining the money that they earned from the game. Others suggested that there was a budget cut, and that Illumix simply could not continue making the game because they ran out of funds. Some still had hope that they were working on something huge behind the scenes, but people's questions would be answered soon enough. On September 4th, 2022, a Twitter user known as Misco would post a tweet revealing that Illumix had gone ahead and made a new Twitter account as well as a new website behind the scenes. Both of these did not have Fnaf Ar mentioned anywhere, and it was said that Fnaf Ar had been abandoned. If we go on to their Twitter page and their new account, we could see that they started to begin a new era beyond Fnaf Ar, even as far as June 2nd, 2022. This caused huge outrage from the Fnaf Ar community, and a lot of players were angry that Illumix for leaving them in the dust. If anything, I can't blame them for their reaction. They left the Fnaf Ar community behind without saying anything to the player base, and during those times when I received the news myself, it hurt in a way. A lot of YouTubers uploaded videos on the situation and their thoughts on what just had happened. Obviously, there are many comments of frustrations from the community, but one YouTube comment on the upload that stood out the most came from a YouTuber known as Average T. In the pinned comments of the video, there is a message from a channel called Blue Ninja 691. This comment claimed to be working with Illumix since 2020 and gave us some insight info on what was going on behind the scenes. It goes to say that due to the amount of money being lost with the Disney Accelerator program failing, the CEO wanted to leave the company. After all this loss, they agreed to rebrand it to something else, and in the future, they may have continued with the game in the years 2024 or 2025. But this was most likely not true because at the bottom of the comment, the commentator goes on to state that they were on their son's account. That alone is a red flag, and didn't end up providing any other evidence that they did work for the company. Any other evidence was lackluster, or this comment is definitely false. There were many things that were going on during this time. It was very clear that the community was very upset at Illumix, and with them not saying anything, it was believed that the community was left in the dust. After the community accepted what had happened, many people had moved on from the game. It was concluded by many that Illumix was just not going to work on the game anymore, and the fun had lasted until the end. However, some were still curious on what Illumix was doing nowadays, and many questions were answered in the year after the event that occurred. On December 8th, 2022, Illumix would host a 24-hour extra live stream and would announce it on their Twitter page. There was a schedule of the events that would go on, and many people were hoping for an answer about Fnaf Ar. But after searching and receiving no result, I'm glad to confirm that there was no answer from Illumix. On March 23, 2023, a site was published confirming that Illumix had many big companies behind them for their future projects, and it was announced that the community had made a funding of $18 million. The site goes on to state of the future plans that Illumix had in store for themselves, but there was no mention of their plans with Find Freddy's Hero Special Delivery in the future. On April 10, 2023, the YouTuber Johnny Bucks would later cover this site in a YouTube video to inform the community of the game and the future of Illumix. As the days went on, there were more interviews featuring Kareen Sinha, where she would go more in depth about her plans for the Illumix in the future. She would go ahead and mention Five Nights at Freddy's AR in a recent interview on April 14th, 2023.
It was when we did the first play test for the Five Nights at Freddy's game. It was really early on. I mean, it was barely built out as a game. I think there was one model inside of it. It was, it didn't even end up being the end game mechanics necessarily that we used, but the goal of the game was to frighten someone, to make them believe that there's this ghost or this creature in the room with them, even if you can't see it.
But there were no mentions of their plans in the game moving on in the future. On July 4th, 2023, Johnny Blocks would post a tweet that Illumix had added new promotion footage to their new website on the game. It was worth noting though, however, that there is no mention that the game would be revived. It was just a way to show off what they made, nothing new. I could go on and on about what was going on after July 4th, but at this point, it was clear that Illumix had no intentions of coming back to the game anytime soon, and that they are moving on to other things within the future of the company. Five Nights at Freddy's AR would not receive any more updates during this time, but at the same time, the community had occupied themselves with an alternative, Forsaken AR. This game is a fan-made game inspired by the official game, and it was made by a group of hardworking developers with a passion to create something special, and to this day, it is still ongoing. It grew over time, and even got praised by some developers of Illumix during their charity stream back in December. This game brought many players over, and although it isn't as big as the official game itself, Forsaken AR has a great community. For you Fnaf Ar fans out there, I would recommend checking out this game. Five Nights at Freddy's AR was a great game during this time, but had a bad ending to conclude it. Illumix had many goals they had in mind in the future, but a big mistake was leaving without informing the community about anything. The lack of communication is the reason why there were so many problems to begin with, and as a person who played this game on a daily basis back then, I don't even care if they choose not to release a detailed paragraph on when they left. I just wish they said goodbye. As of October 25th, 2023, there has still been no updates nor any mentions of the future of the game itself. I guess the biggest question that still remains is if Illumix will ever return to Five Nights at Freddy's AR special delivery. I guess time will tell.